Hello and welcome to a very special podcast from the Honest Football Podcast. And this is almost a bit of a part two, isn't it? Because a couple of months ago, we were sat here, myself, Charlie and Craig, as we are today, talking about Macclesfield Town, who had been, at that point, they had obviously been relegated due to a further points deduction, again relating to the failure of paying players and a couple of other off-the-pitch instances. And today we're back probably with a reaction to the worst possible news as a football fan from yesterday, which is, for the first of what is likely to be quite a few, Macclesfield Town have been wound up in the High Court with debts over £500,000. That included nearly £200,000 owed in tax and nearly £200,000 as well to John Astley, a former manager. I mean, I guess initially, we've just got to talk about the reaction to the news generally. As a football fan, seeing a club go under a year later after the Bury situation and the Bolton situation, which was so close as well. How on earth is this happening yet again?
Well, to be honest, for me to kick off with it, I do feel like you are banging a head against a brick wall, but I feel like we're being a bit desensitized to it. If I'm honest, we'll go into the media coverage a bit later on if you don't want me asked like doing that. But actually, like there was a statement, Rick Parry today said that it's not inevitable that clubs are going to go out of business. But as a collective, the EFL clubs together have lost £25 million this year. You know, it works out it's about 347,000 per club. You know, so and we're wondering why teams are going under in. You know, and you can't, talk about COVID and all of that. The point is that if we know that that's how much we're losing, and we know that this is the impact it has on a club, just saying that this is inevitable, that it won't happen, is not going to stop it, is it? You have to put procedures in place. You have to put packages in place. You have to do some sort of safeguarding. If you know that that's how much you're losing, how can you just identify that? And this is the bit that baffles me about the EFL, is to identify that and then do nothing about it. Do you know what I mean? Like that's just... It's just, if you're like, take it in your job, for example, Dan, if you're like a doctor saying, yeah, you broke your foot, and then just leaving you, I know I broke my foot, what am I going to do about it? And that's the bit that baffles me about the whole situation. It's just like, we know what's going wrong. We know that this system clearly isn't working, and yet no one seems to be doing anything to address the actual issues that are causing this. Agreed. And that's the bit I get so exasperated about.
Can I move to you, Craig? Because I want to touch on something you mentioned in a previous podcast. And obviously, firstly, it's great to have your voice back after yesterday's appearance on the channel.
It's still not there. Still not there.
But obviously, you've talked previously when we've been talking about the EFL League 1 and 2 as all the points per game thing was going on. You talked about we were in this situation with Luton, which we both support 12 years ago. We've been in this situation with Bury and Bolton last year, many others in between, even Charlton over the second half of last season. There's no lesson being learned. How on earth do we keep saying the same thing about a different club?
No, you're right. It's this. What more can you add is EFL not they just make up as they go along what they want to do with clubs. As you said, we said previously, the fit and proper test is completely shambolic, and there's no point even doing it if you're going to have people like the owner of Macclesfield not paying anything. Players obviously went on strike for a bit. I think they lost the FA Cup game back in November of last year. Where do you take a stand? How far do you need to go to sort everything out again? We've lost Bury last year. We've now lost Macclesfield. Southend have now got a winding up order, which I can see them going. As much as I don't want them to, I don't want any club to go, to be honest. No. Even like
your worst enemy, you wouldn't wish it, would you?
I wouldn't want I wouldn't want Watford to go bust, because otherwise the rivalry would just go, and it's absolutely pointless. But I don't know what more we can do, because until they know how to actually do a test, there's no point.
Yeah, I mean,
can I just add to that really quickly? Sorry, I'm only playing. I haven't said this on a podcast for ages, but I'm playing devil's advocate slightly here.
Oh dear.
But we've only done predictions.
Can I just, but the whole thing about the owner and all of that and the fit and proper test, I personally believe there has to be some sort of blame shouldered by the league for the simple reason that only letting the club know they were playing in the National League a month ago. And the reason I say this is, the whole debacle of how long it took for them to sort out this Macclesfield Stevenage points thing is actually, if they knew they were in the National League, for argument's sake, June, you can then try and target those businessmen that might be able to save the club, might be able to get involved. As a businessman, am I going to buy into a club that I don't definitely know is going to be in League Two and the financial implications of that, or is going to be in a National League? And no wonder people haven't invested or tried to sort of pay off the debts or anything like that, because, I'll be buying an asset that I don't actually know where it's even going to be. Do you know what I mean? And so, but I feel like that's gone under the radar a bit. Maybe I'm being wrong for saying that, but I do feel like the whole faffing around to make that decision has had a direct impact on this outcome, personally.
I mean, you do make a point. They kept asking for adjournments. I know it got to a stage where it was a little bit silly, but you have to understand, during that pandemic, there was no one who was going to say, I can invest in this club with certainty, because you have no idea where they're going to be, do you? So you're absolutely right with that. I mean, the thing that I found the most appalling about the case, before we move on to the implications elsewhere in football, is the fact that there was a screenshot apparently in the trial of a 1.1 million funds available in a bank account, yet there's 500,000 of debt that's not been paid. And obviously the judge, as you would expect, his first question is, well, if it's there, why hasn't it been paid? I mean, it's just something that seemed a little bit bizarre to me. So I'd love if there's anyone in the comments who knows a bit more who can clear that up for us. But I want to move on to you two lads to more pressing matters about the football pyramid, because we're now going 2 weeks before a National League season's due to start with 23 clubs rather than 24. We had the same in League One after the season started last year. And again, every league below the National League is going to have a knock-on effect this year. So, Craig, you're managing in non-league football. I mean, there's so much here that's going to have an implication on other teams.
It just makes it complicated for everyone else, to be honest. Yeah. Obviously, the National League will now have 23 teams. And it's the same with Bury going last year. Right, how many teams are going to get relegated again? Yeah. Obviously, it was 3 last season, wasn't it? So it'd be another, once again, it'd be 3. Then you've got the chain that do who gets relegated. Does one get relegated from the National League North now? Because obviously Macclesfield are in the Northwest. Will one team just get relegated? And then it wouldn't be fair on the other. So where did Macclesfield fit in after that?
It's a mess, as you're describing.
Yeah. So obviously Bury got, well, the original Bury, they're not in any league. No. The fans' new club, AFC Bury, will be placed in step 6 of the national of the non-league pyramid. So I don't know. It's just literally ridiculous. It's just, as I said, we've got a massive pyramid in this country for football, and it never makes it easier every year. And they're trying to reconstruct the pyramid, so it'd be more local games rather than go further distance. And once again, that plays an effect on that as well. So it's a mess. It's a mess for the FA to sort out again come June next year. Hopefully the season will actually conclude. Fingers crossed it does. But and the main thing is you got to feel sorry for the fans and the players.
Oh, it's ridiculous. I mean, Charlie, my question to you is then, as Craig alluded to earlier, and yourself, what do we then do in a month's time if Southend go as well? I mean, God forbid that happens, but what do we then do if it does?
Well, that's the thing. And I suppose then, I mean, we mentioned it, if you're a club like Ebbsfleet, do you start then lodging appeals? I mean, again, that probably take 4 years to sort out. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Because
we saw it in SPL, didn't we, with Hearts and...
Yeah, exactly. But I think the thing for me is we mentioned this before quite a few times, is it's not just that club that it affects. It's one less game. I know that there's people aren't not in the stadiums at the minute, but you'd like to think hopefully there will be. Even if it's TV rights, I don't know. Macclesfield, particularly the National League, I would say would be a bigger draw than a lot of clubs in the National League due to the fact that, they were an established football league club, all that sort of thing. So there's loss of revenue for other clubs. There's players who now, are out of work and things like that. I just think the point is it doesn't just affect Macclesfield financially, and that's the thing that we seem to be forgetting about that. And it's one less game for fans to watch and one less game for players to play in. And ultimately, if you love football, you want to watch games or play it. And no matter which way you dress it up, if you're losing games, then it can't be a good thing, can it?
As you said, Charlie, it's all about preparation. Bromley was supposed to play Macclesfield in the first game of the season a couple of weeks' time. Now that's been that's gone. All Bromley's preparation has completely gone out the window. So what do you do now? Do you just try and find another friendly out somewhere? Because it's going to be hard because every other team will be playing now. Do you just have a rest on a Saturday? As I say, it's a knock-on effect for the teams that obviously are not due to playing as well.
And actually, presumably, you would imagine there's going to be some form of appeal of some sort, which actually means Bromley won't even be able to decide that now. And I mean, as I just mentioned to you a minute ago, Macclesfield were due to be on TV the second week of the season on BT Sport. So what do they do as the TV company who are the rights holder paying the National League and their teams? Yeah. I mean, there's so much to go on here.
What I would just like to quickly add on that is actually, if you're a player in that club, for example, they've just got in Tim Flowers as a manager, an established National League manager,
and a few
as a goalkeeper. Yeah, exactly. And my point is that actually, did the club know that this was happening? If they're getting if they're getting someone like that in, of that, he's a name, whichever way you dress it up, is this a shock to them? Because if you knew this is around the corner, would you have been making those kind of investments in there? I honestly get the impression it's actually a surprise to the club that they've been. But then, like
they were £500,000 in debt.
Well, the chairman will have known, but will the others have known is the question.
And if they didn't know that, like the staff and the players, there's no way any other clubs are going to have known that, and therefore, like you say, put things in place for it. That's the point I was trying to make, is that no one had any idea this was coming outside of probably those people in the boardroom.
Well, to be honest, do you think the board have lied to like Tim Flowers and that to say, yeah, it's all fine, not a problem?
Must have done.
You
No,
can't
give him
see
the job.
anything else.
The damage for his reputation from this. I know he hasn't done anything wrong, but still, he's out of a job now when there's not really anyone else looking for a manager at the minute. So he's gonna have to wait until someone either gets sacked or whatever. There's no way I believe someone of Tim Flowers' renown. I know he's not, but do you know what I mean? He was a Premier League goalkeeper in the day. Would have taken a job knowing that potentially 4 weeks down, not even 4 weeks, was it 3 weeks down the line they're going to go bust. I'm sorry, I can't believe that. So they must have duped him, and some of the players they bought as well.
The fact that John Askey, the former manager, is owed £173,000.
How long was he not being paid for?
Well, there's that, and what is he pumping in? What is he paying? Is he paying the players? Is he paying the backroom staff? Is he paying the staff that obviously not in the squad? It's just obviously in the stadium, the tea ladies, all that stuff. I don't know. That's the problem. We don't know, and it's shocking that former manager is owed £173,000.
Yeah. We've got to, I mean, it's the last thing I want to bring it back to Macclesfield. Obviously, we know the effects it's going to have on the pyramid. We've talked about it. Unfortunately, it seems to be most of our topical podcast now as someone going into administration or a club going bust, which is a state of itself. But as Charlie mentioned, there's players that have joined in recent weeks from other clubs who have left clubs that are working and in service to go to Macclesfield. They can't have known. So what do we then do with those players and those staff? And Tim Flowers, as you said, did a great job at Solihull. Was probably one of the more reputable managers in the National League. He may have turned down other jobs. He may have cost himself positions in other clubs to go to Macclesfield. And we're now in a position where it looks like Macclesfield Town won't exist.
Yeah. I mean, the reason I wanted to quickly bring up something, I don't read the papers. I don't like them whatsoever. But as a side note, my father-in-law's staying with me at the minute. He reads the Daily Mail. I don't like it. But the point is, I flicked through it quickly just to highlight something that on the, we talk about the whole thing about the paper and how much media attention it's got. That little bit there is about Macclesfield going bust in the bottom of the paper. This is about 4 pages into the sports section. But the point I'm making is the people who are meant to protect the players, the PFA, someone there is earning 350 grand for that. And that's not even the top man. So the point I'm making is, I'm not saying he should give his money away, but the disparity between the person who's in charge of players' welfare and the welfare that players are now going to receive off of this is light years apart. And I just can't see why there's such a disparity that we can't have protected this, that this couldn't have been done before, where if you're a player at Macclesfield, there is something else for you to go on to. There's something, it baffles me how we keep going down this same road. And yet we seem to be almost immune to this now as a media and as a sporting sort of fraternity. Do you know what I mean? It's bizarre, absolutely bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a fairly good point to end on, actually. I don't want you two to have to just continue to be negative all day, which there isn't really a choice in this instance. The same as the Wigan one is we don't really see a huge light at the end of the tunnel. At least I guess Wigan have still got a club at the moment. Macclesfield, it doesn't look like we'll even have that. We can't begin to say how you would feel if you're a Macclesfield fan, the same as Bury last year. There is no positive outcome. We just hope that the fans can put together perhaps a club like they did with Bury, and that we'll see them somewhere in the non-league pyramid next year, however big or small that may be. But if you did enjoy this episode, I know that's probably not the right word, please do put a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel for regular content from the podcast. We'll be back with happier predictions for the Championship Week 3 next week. Macclesfield fans, we are sorry to hear the news, and hopefully we'll be hearing about a Phoenix club soon. You can follow us on Twitter at HonestFootball3 to stay up to date, and we'll see you next time.